Don't forget that. Hi, welcome to our Thursday book launch. I'm Malika Albrecht, the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild, and tonight I'm super excited because we have Nancy Young here, and you can see the background is the book Southern Edge, and they do mean Southern Edge. I'm adding somebody real quick. I'm going to read a brief bio, and then I'm going to turn it right to you, Nancy. Nancy Martin Young has played with words in every iteration of her life as an academic, a reporter, an editor, and a writer. Besides articles, poems, and short stories, she has also penned 3 romantic suspense paranormal novels set in Raleigh, near where she lives, seeing things, hearing things, and sensing things, plus a Regency novel, Wit and Prattles. The Last Girl Standing is the title of her poetry chapbook. And that's how we first met, was when I remember you reading from that. Nancy is still married to the guy who took her to prom, and we see Dan here, and that's awesome. They share a passel of nearly perfect children and 2 spoiled, rotten basset hounds. Nancy, welcome so very much. I'm really happy to have you reading from Southern Edge. Just a reminder to people, mute yourself, please, while we're listening.
Malika, thank you so much for having me. And thank you also for this platform and for Redheaded Stepchild. They've been so helpful to writers like me. And I appreciate everybody who zoomed in tonight and came to listen. And I'm looking forward to listening to your words later on. This collection has a little something for every taste, or almost every taste anyway. There's Southern Gothic, there's romance, there's humor, and there's poignancy. The first story is one Malika requested, so anybody who's ever had teenagers can probably identify with this one. It's called Flight Risk. There are some things you can't say, like your baby is ugly, or maybe you shouldn't take the driver's test yet, given that bunny you ran over. But sometimes you just can't help yourself. Tall for 16, he slouches in his seat, pushed all the way back, one hand resting negligently on the wheel. I sit upright, surreptitiously clutching the door handle, grateful that this is the last son I'll have to teach to drive. Years ago, I taught this one to tie his sneakers, carve a pumpkin, kick a soccer ball, hold a kitten, and fend off the bullies on the school bus. Now, he thinks he knows it all. He hasn't yet learned to scan the sides for unexpected missiles like kids on bikes or kamikaze squirrels, so he never saw the little rabbit, probably born that spring, and he barely felt the bump under the front right tire. But his lips thinned at my comment, and he tightened his hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. We ride in relative silence for a few minutes, listening to the gentle sweep of the windshield wipers, the snick of tires on pavement, the occasional squeal of brakes, and the soothing tone of the radio commentator. Then he leans over to switch the station. Hey, I was listening to that. And I had been, between gasps. It was an NPR story about professional mourners. I thought the last of those went out with Oliver Twist, but mourning's the dead's big business in China these days, apparently. One grieving relative explained matter-of-factly to the reporter, "We need a professional because children in China have forgotten how to cry." It was just some news program about how the world sucks. Why do you listen to that stuff all the time? It's boring. I ignore his near miss at uttering profanity, then decide to ignore the self-absorbed attitude too. You have to pick your battles. My car, my radio, I say instead. After a few seconds, he leans over deliberately, achieving an impressive level of condescension as he switches back to the wailing. In the closed car, I listen to the manufactured grief, envisioning dry-eyed teens standing on a motherless, barren cliff with their hands over their ears, the only weeping, the hired kind, extravagant and professional. And as he takes the next turn, the car bounces over the curb and closes in on an overgrown holly. At that moment, I imagine my own funeral, watching it play out in front of me, flickering candles, gleaming casket, cascades of lilies, and my son as a pallbearer, smirking in a new suit. I even have time to hear the opening bars of the hymn before he swerves back on the pavement, leaving a muddy gash on the lawn. I look over at him. "What?" he says. What if his juvenile reflexes hadn't kicked in and we'd rolled down the embankment or crashed into that holly, my mangled body thrust through the shattered windshield? Would he have scraped me from the pavement before the crows lit to pick my bones? Or worse, this thought makes my stomach hurt. What if he'd been alone, the night dark, and the road icy, radio at ear-splitting decibels, deaf to danger? I do not say these things. Slow down, I say instead. He slows, exaggerating his caution, signaling a block before the next turn, planting his hands at 10 and 2 to appease me, glancing over and laughing. I don't slap him. Unlike him, I keep my eyes on the road. Ahead, a mostly flat bird straddles the solid yellow line in the middle of the street. It waves one tattered wing when cars speed by. That bird once flew with two. I want to say, notice that bird. It could be that some newly licensed texting queen failed to swerve from his flight path. Look, that blackbird had a mother. Bet she told him not to fly so fast. But I say nothing. We inch home, every stop sign given its due, both his hands solidly on the wheel. Once in park, he engages the brake and grins at me. I smile back. But after he goes inside, I stay in the passenger seat, just breathing. For the next one, I have to do some explaining. Years ago, I used to take these online workshops, and I know some of you also did. They were writing workshops, and they used to be posted on Yahoo. This was before there were Zooms. Lessons would get emailed as a post, and participants would post passages from their own work and post questions. So this story is a parody of one such workshop, and it's led by a guy who wrote steamy werewolf romances. It's in email form, so I'll change the voices. It's called 4 Lessons in Male POV for Romance Writers. Dear webmaster, I tried accessing the online class, but had no luck. I didn't see anything in the file folder either. Did I do something wrong? Isn't today the first day? Darcy Fan 123. Hello, ladies. Apologies for the late start. Spent the day in bed after an over-enthusiastic weekend with bullwhips and handcuffs. Just Yahoo's giving me fits. First post up soon. Wolfmaster. Lesson 1. Welcome to Male POV 101. I'll be your packmaster for this course, leading you down the musky trails of the male perspective. When you write romance, it's easy to imagine things from the heroine's POV. After all, you're female, and so are most of your readers. But there's a whole other side of things, and lifting the red satin curtain to expose it is what's going to lure your readers in and keep them panting. Let's get started. So I can get an idea of who's out there. Tell me who your favorite hero is and why. Gotta go with Smoke in Angela Knight's Mage series. Tall, dark, and naked. He's so alpha, the alphabet can stop with him. paranormal lover. Nora Roberts Roark. I just love him. He's gorgeous. He's sexy. He's sophisticated. He has all the money in the world. Enough said. Romance for you. Like many of you, I'm sure, I'm tempted to say Fitzwilliam Darcy, right? But I'm picking Gabriel Oak from Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd. Unlike the dashing Troy and possessive Boldwood, Oak's the solid match for tempestuous Bathsheba Everdeen, constant, steady, solid as the Wessex crags. He's elemental. His faults? Farmer Oak has a vast emotional landscape he keeps shuttered. He could love an easier woman, but he waits instead for the only one. Darcy fan 1, 2, 3. Good start, class. Most of you did well in picking a hero that keeps readers coming back for more. Alpha rule. Wolfmaster. Lesson 2. A great way to develop your hero is to make him fit what I call an archetype. An archetype is like an original pattern, a kind of mold that everything fits into. I've discovered that all heroes fit into one of these types. Homework. Which of these archetypes does your favorite hero fit into? 1, the pirate. He's the action hero. Think Indiana Jones. He'll make the heroine dream of raping and pillaging. 2, the professor. Remember the guy on Gilligan's Island reruns? This hero uses his brain and saves his woman with logic and a cool head and a hot cock. 3, the bestie. Seth Rogen has this guy down. More beta than alpha. He's the only one who lets the girl do the rescuing, but he's still got the moves. 4, the bad boy. My personal favorite. The James Dean type, sexy with an edge and an attitude. Now remember, this is fiction. Give your readers just enough backstory to snag their interest. Then start in with the conflict as early as possible, even if it means delivering a good kick in the ass to get your hero going. Here, Wolfmaster. Is it possible that a hero could be a mixture of the types? Darcy fan 1, 2, 3. No, Wolfmaster. Dear Wolfmaster, the hero in my work in progress is more of a professor type to start, but when the chips are down, he has swashbuckler characteristics. Can a hero morph from one type into another? Darcy fan 1, 2, 3. No, Wolfmaster. Lesson 2, continued. Why conflict, you might ask? Because no one wants to read about happy, contented males. Contentment's for cows. 2 more definitions for you. External conflict. This is the conflict between your hero and something outside of him. Internal conflict. This is when the hero fights with himself. But either way, the hero has to have something to lose. Questions? Could you give some examples? Romance for you. Okay, so when my partner decided to dump me this weekend, screaming for the whole apartment complex to hear that I was a cheating, insensitive asshole, that would be external. When I finished off the bottle of tequila and tried to talk myself out of patching things up or going out for another bottle, that would be internal. Battling my demons, Wolfmaster. Dear Wolfmaster, I am so very sorry for your loss. Do you think that perhaps writers need their demons? I know that mine wield a razor-edged flog to keep me here at the keyboard, searching for inspiration. Darcy fan 1, 2, 3. Not when those demons leave you blacked out at the bottom of the bottle, Wolfmaster. See how that relationship works out? I guess you have to get the book. The next story is a tale of a wish gone wrong. And it's called The Incredible Tedium of a Fresh Perspective. And there's some background, but I'll start in the middle. Emma's fleeting wish barely registered before it was forgotten. When she awoke Friday, her worst fears were realized. She was right. Gone was the edge she'd honed for years. As rosy-fingered dawn attempted to pry open her eyelids, she buried her face in the downy, meadow-fresh softness of her pillowcase. Beyond the casement, which the night before had been a simple window, lacy leaves of limpid green bobbed in the balmy breeze. Warblers and thrushes, robins and wrens joined the dawn chorus, and her heart sang in corresponding joy. What the fuck? Emma thought. She found herself bounding out of bed, eager to embrace all the day had to offer. She tripped lightly into the bathroom and repressed a gag when she saw how the water droplets glistened in the basin like tiny rainbows. Her toothpaste tasted minty fresh. In fact, fresh had become the go-to adjective for all she touched. Toilet paper, soap, towel, deodorant, blouse. Her brain, however, felt stale and trite. Quite trite. She goes to work, and the problem continues. Surprisingly full of vim and vigor, Emma breezed through the gate of her corporate prison, stilettos clicking, determined for once to tap through that glass ceiling, heedless of the shard. Sometimes you just gotta throw the brick, she reminded herself smugly. Today is a given day. This given day, Emma had drunk the Kool-Aid and was excreting the vocabulary to go with it. Hey, let's blue sky that option, she chortled 3 minutes in the morning meeting, then slapped her hand over her mouth as 2 startled team members looked up from their iPads. It gets worse, so Emma ducks out of work early, but she runs into her crush, Ken. There he stood by the elevator, tall and rangy, dark stubble shading his firm jaw, thick hair tousled, a veritable harlequin hunk. As he ran a hand through his chestnut curls, his shirt sleeves rained over bulging biceps. If only he'd slide that hand her way. Her pulse quickened, her nipples pebbled, her senses thrummed. The work world whirled away. Emma released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Oh, we meet again. Her voice sounded throaty. She cleared it, blushing. Yeah, hi, Emma. You ready to call it a day already? And glanced down at his phone. She cringed, but couldn't help herself. It just came out. I was born ready, she answered. Ready's my middle name. He cocked an eyebrow and quirked his lips. I thought you said Lay was your middle name. It's catching. He cocked an eyebrow? Really? So before Emma melts into this morass of harlequin cliches, she decides she ought to just go home. And she does. And she contemplates what's happened from that wish. So she'd achieved her fresh start, her do-over. That's what she'd wanted, to see things through new eyes. But until today, she hadn't considered the importance of finding the right lens. Just goes to show you, she reminded herself, hearing her grandmother's voice in her head. You should be careful. Her kitchen clock dinged the hour. 12. Hesitant and hopeful and fully present in the moment, she walks to the window, looking out with newer eyes. When she opens herself to the night this time, instead of feeling muffled by a velvet sky studded with diamonds, her senses spin with the torque of the city. Midnight in the city. The streets are dark like the promise of sin. Across town, dames flit and laugh and lure men to their doom. A cool wind blows from the north, the kind of wind that slides in through the riverbeds and alleyways, that makes your hair limp and your skin slick and makes you want to slink towards the seedier bars in search of some action. The kind of night when anything could happen. Emma's grin grows kitten sharp as she anticipates the perils the weekend promises. And one more, I think I got time for one more, right? This one is based on an actual thing that happened with one of our basset hounds. The curious case of the stray pork chop. I walk my reluctant basset hound every day, much to her disappointment. Sugar loves many things in her life: my husband, her bed, the sofa, treats. But other than a race to the refrigerator, exercise doesn't make the list. Shug displays all the basset hound traits you'd expect: feral body, hanging ears, pleading eyes, and most importantly for this story, a highly sensitive nose combined with an insatiable appetite. I tugged and coaxed her around South Park, about a 1.5 mile loop. We had just crossed over Slaughterhouse Road to the sidewalk bordering a newish subdivision when she made a lightning fast pull to the left and scarfed up something in the road. Knowing what horrors would follow if I let her swallow whatever it was, I pried open her mighty jaws and extricated the offal, imagining a flattened squirrel. It was a pork chop. 2/3 of a loin chop, to be precise, the kind of chop that turns tough if you try to fry it. There it lay, gray, wet, and partly chewed, back in the middle of the road. A pork chop. At most, it was a few hours old, or it would have been squashed in traffic or carried off by the vultures that hover about the area. When Sugar looked at me reproachfully, I said, "We don't know where that pork chop has been, baby." And that's the mystery. Why was there a fairly fresh pork chop at the entrance to a subdivision on the south side of Fuquay Arena? Scenario 1. A meat terrorist is on a mission. Invading small towns across North Carolina, the masked menace is flinging pork chops as part of a protest against something pork-related, like regulation of hog waste or the new menu at Smithfield. Scenario 2. Instead, perhaps some careless pork muncher was chewing on a chop as he, and I imagine it had to be a he, a ham-fisted, baseball cap wearing he, steered his gas-guzzling Ford F-150 out of the neighborhood, executed a rolling stop, and deciding he had enough, leaned out of the window and let it drop. Scenario 3. Maybe the designer labradoodle Shug and I passed earlier that morning had been carrying the chop with her. It could have been the dog's favorite chop or a spare chop, maybe a little something for later. She could have startled and dropped it in favor of something better, like a flattened squirrel. Scenario 4. It's possible that a pork delivery service vehicle came to a sudden stop, sending pork chops tumbling. This scenario, though, might be far-fetched, as I haven't noticed any cooked pork chop delivery services in the area. That does not mean such services couldn't exist. Anything is possible, even a stray pork chop in the road. Thanks so much for listening.
Oh, thank you so very much. That was awesome. I love the humor. You're gonna enjoy the comments a lot. If people want to unmute, please do, and we can take a moment just to say thank you, Nancy. And the reading, just all the best with the different voices. I think several of us were like, yeah, Priscilla, many characters portrayed so well.
Well done, Nancy.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much.
Brilliant. Great reading.
Oh,
I'm
thanks
really-
so much.
Was the
I'm
pork
really
chop
glad
on
you read the
sale?
pork chop story.
I'm sorry, was the pork chop what?
Was it
I'm
on
really
sale?
glad you read the pork chop story.
That was a great ending too.
Oh, thanks. That's the last one in the book. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So many of them have kernels of truth to them.
Mimi said, I love hearing you read these out loud. They sounded just like they sounded in my head when I first read these stories, only better. Yeah,
thanks.
only even better. Yeah, I think that I was caught off guard, Nancy, when you lowered your voice. I was like, wow. Didn't know she could.
Yes, it was very dramatic. It was.
I tried. I practiced in front of the dogs. Kind of scared them.
That's fabulous.
And Mimi, I have to say thank you for writing a blurb for this. That was so kind of you. So,
Oh, my pleasure, Nancy. It was such a treat to read these stories. They are brilliant. It's a fabulous book.
well, so yours is too. I hope everybody reads Kudzu Queen.
Yes, we need to get Mimi on here to do a reading from Kudzu Queen. Let's go. I'm checking to see if I missed anybody with a question. If I did, just jump in and ask Nancy. Feel free to ask Nancy.
Well, I think I already know the answer to this, but I did want to ask, because she did say there was a kernel of truth in all of them, but I did want to ask where she gets some of her inspiration. Is it all from life experience or?
A lot of it is real, but Laura knows, and many of you know that I tend to listen a lot. I love to listen to people and catch snippets of conversation, like in the checkout line at Food Line or at a two top down at the Aviator Brewery. And you hear just a little bit, and then my mind at least starts to go in a whole direction for the story behind it. And there's one story in here that's absolutely true, every single word except for that one name. And if you buy the book, I'll tell you which one it is. And a lot of the other
Look,
I'll
me
e-
tell
See,
me.
I have my copy here.
I will email you which one it is. But I really, it's a lot of it's imagination. Many of the characters are me, like the last one, and my dogs are in a couple of them. People I know are in there, but fortunately, many of them that are parodied don't know and don't read. So,
All right. Does that include the son who was in the driving lesson?
the son is actually a compilation of more than one child, but the episode with NPR was absolutely true.
Well, you not only listen, Nancy, but you observe, because the story about the cows was fantastic.
Did I
I
miss a
loved it.
purchase link
Because I grew up on a farm.
for the book?
I'm glad you liked it. I am so glad that people were entertained. I had a blast writing them. I really did. I mean, I giggle when I write things to myself. So I'm
I
glad.
giggle when I read them.
I'm so
Yeah,
glad.
I lost y'all for a second. What I was saying is, Nancy, I'm going to put a link to Main Street Rag, but if people wanted an autograph copy, can they reach out to you for that?
Sure. Yeah,
Awesome.
sure. And I have books. Believe me, I have books.
What's the best, what email would you like me to put into the chat section?
The N. Martin Young one with Gmail, because it's embarrassing to still have an AOL one. But I do.
It's not for me. I'm proud.
And then I'll put the Main Street Rag link. So people can go.
Scott will appreciate that.
Did anybody have any other questions for Nancy? Because if not, we will go to open mic.
I have a question. Nancy, I imagine you tell me if I'm right or wrong, that you write short stories here and there rather than writing a short story book, that you write them in between poetry and novels.
Right. And short stories are what I write when I don't have time to work on a novel, or when I just see something and I have to get it down. Like if, I go to Home Depot and I just can't resist writing the story. But but I write poetry because that I can do that in a day, and because I have deadlines. And then the novels are things that are always on the desktop waiting to be finished. But thanks for the question.
How do you decide what you're going to make a poem or a short story or a novel?
That's such a great question. The one about the one you like, Malika, the flight risk one. I tried that as a poem first, and it started with the line about you can't tell people their baby is ugly, and that poem went nowhere because nobody wanted to read the poem after the first line. So I sent it out. It didn't go anywhere, and then I just wrote it out as a story, and then it worked better, and Literary Mama picked it up. Then I put it in here. So yeah, and I do that a lot. There's a sort of novella in part of this that was also partly a poem. I've got a poem on the same subject, and switching genres is easy for me, and I think it really works. If you find your story isn't working in one way, it might just be you have the wrong form. So
That makes, I was just curious because I usually say if the poem fails, I just let it fail. But I was curious if sometimes you start in one direction and then pivot and go, this would be better.
yeah.
Sorry.
And flash fiction and poetry, really, I don't even know where the line is. Do you?
Well, no, I was going to say, that's a real hot button right now where people have strong opinions, but I think a lot of it's debatable.
Yeah.
Maureen, how do you, do you teach people with that? Do you have a way in?
With flash fiction and poetry?
Mm-hmm. Like prose poems and flash fiction?
We sort of do them in separate units, but yeah, I'd say what Nancy said is the best thing. If it doesn't work in one form, maybe it doesn't belong in that form. So don't force it into a form that is not working. And sometimes a short story is a novel. In the same way.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, it's my sense that we're ready for open mic, but Nancy, thank you so much. And thank you for reading the one I really wanted to hear. I relate to that one so much.
I'm so glad. Thank everybody. I really appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for reading with such, different voices. It just was fabulous. Just so fabulous.
I entertain myself.
And us.
Couldn't get my video to work. I wanted people to see I was in my PJs, but what the heck?
This must be PJ night because a lot of us are actually. I tried to turn it on for you.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
here I am.
Yay.
Look at me. Now I'm in bed. Oh, that's bad. I didn't think you were going to know that.
Hi, Brittany. I see you.
We're glad you're
Well,
comfortable.
My secret is out.
We are glad you're comfortable. All right, everybody. I have Julian down first, and I will come to you. And let me know if somebody wants me to pause during our open mic. There you go, Julian.
Okay. Nancy, thanks for that. I liked the way you deconstructed the cliches of of romances, especially. Although I'm gonna buy your book just because I think I might want to write something myself about a stray pork chop. That really got me. This is something I wrote a while back, and it's about a landscape in Texas, not the place I live today. But I wanted to read it because of its subject matter. It's called Mayday, and it has an epigraph that's from an old Mayday carol. Mayday. My song is done. I must be gone. I can no longer stay. Surprised by spring, I mark these signs. Down from the house, wild iris, lawns rife with bluebonnets. Farther along, a stupefied goose sits in the road as drivers steer. What if winter had paved us over, hard as Bodark? Time had thinned like a grinning bear asleep in a windless cave. Gods come and go, but do not philosophize, Nietzsche says. I prefer to think they study us hopefully, hoard our weather against absence, beyond snowmelt fled from our doors, or leave us wild iris bunched in paper, love to excess, billion bluebonnets, print of departure across the grass. Does this surprise, you ask? Your eyes almost green, best day of my life, already fled from my door, air rife with your going. I reach for philosophy, find only yes. Oh, yes, find only yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you so very much. Oh, yeah. The people are writing notes. You need to check the chat section. I'm headed to Donna next. There, I see you now. There we go. Unmute.
I once had two basset hounds, Dudley and Sula, and it's a laugh a day. I'm going to read a poem about another one of my dogs. And this poem is called Sula. Old dog, and it was published by Aneurin. Sula, old dog, you must have forgotten your failing heart, cataracts, arthritis. This morning you tried to jump into my lap. You stopped mid-air as if you remembered the gravity of your age and landed hard on the tile floor. It must have been a different pain, an ache for something familiar. Dear Sula, let me pick you up, stroke your graying coat, pet you behind the ears. What the body forgets, the heart remembers.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love this open mic.
Mm.
Julio, I'm coming to you.
I don't know if I'm unmuted.
You are. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. Well, it's Rimbaud month. And because it's Rimbaud month, I've written a poem inspired by Yeats. So nobody's going to tell me what to do. There's a picture of my nono with the inscription of the last line from a poem by W.B. Yeats. He wishes for the cloths of heaven. It is displayed in our kitchen. Had I the heavens' embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light. I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I've spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. My dreams were your ashes, downtrodden, not embedded in luxury, a leaden crucifix and greasy black beads, the penknife and smile as you cut the peaches, rendering the sweetest offerings to sticky, outstretched fingers, wiggling impatiently. My fantasies occupy your stars and reside in infinity. Tell me your dreams, and I will dance in them. You played your tune in countenance and speech, and I listened with delight. You knew our melodies to suit the harmony of our spirits. Yes, we share our steps in dances of rapture and revelation. Our blood and spirit twirls in chanting tender couplets. First you, with me looking up, as I always did, until this final turn to welcome the face of stars in the firmament. We are primed to take our places in supreme excursions together, to converse with a countenance of ecstasy radiating in every heaven.
Oh, gorgeous. Check the comments, please, Julia.
Oh, I will.
There are
Thank
quite
you.
a few of them. I'm headed to Joan. There you are.
Hello there.
Hi.
I wrote this poem for Earth Day in Carborough, where I live, and it was written in collaboration with the art installation Seated at the Table #1 by Catherine Case. Mother Elm. Sacred to our town, you rear above us in years and height, solitary now, a totem of the forest long before you were a fragile sapling. In darkness, a darker mesh of leaves and branches throws shadows to the ground. By day, cool shade. Who hears your song? You speak in words only your tribe translates. Once I leaned against you listening. If only it were given me to understand, what secrets would I hear? Our mother elm, from buried roots, through stolid trunk, to heavy arching boughs, to finest twigs, each vein running through each leaf, utters light breath, bright life.
Oh, gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, what secrets would I hear? Mimi, let me find you. Say something, Mimi. Oh, there we go.
Okay,
I see
hi,
you now.
sorry.
Sometimes it's looking at the little title, little tiles, and I'm like, I can't find you. There you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking me to read. I was just gonna come for my fabulous friend Nancy. I have loved your reading, Nancy. So I'll just read a little snippet from the second page of The Kudzu Queen. Here we go. When the Kudzu King parked in front of the feed store and stepped out onto the running board, everything came to a stop. Mothers paused mid-sentence, men's tobacco spit splattered silently in Pepsi Cola bottles, little girls froze in their reach for scattered jacks, and Danny's next pitch seemed to hang suspended in a long curve to home plate. The doors on the truck read Mr. James T. Culloway, the Kudzu King, but you had only to look at him to know he was royalty. Imagine that, a man in a suit and tie when it wasn't a Sunday wedding or funeral, and such a man with golden hair like the Greek gods we'd studied in junior high. His suit was the forget-me-not blue of his eyes, his white shirt so bright you had to squint to look at him. As for his tie, you couldn't tell if he'd chosen that green to match his truck or had the truck painted to go with his tie. He vaulted over the side rail and stood astride a mountain of leafy cuttings. Ladies and gentlemen of Cooper County, my name is James T. Cullowhee, and I've come to bring you the crop of the future. More versatile than cotton, more profitable than tobacco, more nutritious than corn, this crop will feed your family and livestock and fill your bank account with cold, hard cash. Boys abandoned their baseball game. Mothers stepped out from the grocery doorway in small gatherings of curiosity, while girls, little and big, drew closer. Lynette and I hopped down from the school steps to stand at the back of the crowd. Kudzu, the wonder crop. He picked up a handful of vines and let them flow like a waterfall from his palm. It'll grow anywhere you plant it. No plowing, no fertilizer, no weeding. It needs barely a drop of water. Excellent forage for your horses, cattle, and mules, and a ground cover like you've never seen.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you, Vivi. Yeah, there's quite a few comments. Check the chat section, Minnie. Oh, that's fabulous. Priscilla, I'm coming to you.
Okay. This is a poem that I wrote some time ago for my daughter, and it's from a photograph. Since I wrote it, she's been to New York for some medical treatment, and it was a great success. So we're very grateful for that. And the title of the poem is Photo of My Daughter Hiking in the Mountains for Rochelle. Surrounded by the snow-covered sawtooths that scrape a blue horizon, their bone-white granite forced skyward eons ago by collisions of continental shift. She sports a broad-brimmed hat against the relentless Idaho sun, carries a 40-pound backpack, is outfitted in shorts, t-shirt, hiking boots, right leg thrust forward, left leg supported by her below-the-knee prosthesis. I recall a time she couldn't walk, but damn it all, that was another era. Now she hikes for days in this altitude of jagged beauty, carries her own provisions, ready for any weather.
Holy smokes, that's fabulous. Thank you, Priscilla. Our final open mic reader is Christy. And if I missed anybody, please let me know because it's possible.
Okay, Malika, I'm going to read one of your favorite poems because this is going to be in Heron Clan 10 that'll be out this summer. And this will be in my new collection when I finish getting it all written. This is called Folding Myself into an Origami Girl. Each crease a word on place, on purpose, with its own premonition. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. That was nice to hear it. Thank you.
Can you read it again? It was short.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to hear it again.
I like that
Sure.
idea.
Folding myself into an origami girl, each crease a word on place, on purpose, with its own premonition.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
It's a powerful, powerful. It's nice to hear it a second time, though.
Thanks.
Did I miss anybody for open mic? And if not, y'all can unmute. We could just take a moment to do a round of applause for everybody here. And Nancy, again, I could have listened to you read all night, to be honest.
That's very good. Great.
Anything that mentions Mr. Darcy, as me.
And Mimi, what you read from Kudzu Queen, I was like, I have to get that book. I haven't gotten it yet.
It's great. It's so great.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was compliments in the chat section, so I hope you saw them, Mimi.
I did. Thank you all so much. It's so good to see all my old friends and new friends, and Malika, such a treat. And Nancy, you're amazing.
Yeah, she is.
You're both amazing.
She is amazing. All right, everybody, be well. See
Thank you.
next week, I hope.
Thanks.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see everybody.
Bye.